Okay, you're good.
Welcome everybody to 40 comprehensive halachic topics. Tonight we're doing Hilchos Pesach. Let's begin. Our first subtopic is Mechiras Chametz. Mechiras Chametz is a relatively new din. It's a couple of 100 years old. It works min Torah, and if you don't do it, you violate the Isser from Parshas Bo of Val Yirah, Val Yimatzeh, of finding Chametz, of seeing Chametz and finding Chametz. How do you effectively make a kinyan and do the Mechira for Mechiras Chametz to go through? So the only two makoros you need to know are the Gemara in Bav Metzia, Daf Mem Zayin, Bav Metzia, Daf Mem Zayin. The Gemara in Bav Metzia, Daf Mem Zayin tells us that when you make kinyanim from a Jew to a Jew, there are two ways that it can work. According to Reish Lakish, it works with Meshicha. You draw the item towards you, you pull the item towards you. That's Reish Lakish, Bav Metzia Mem Zayin. And Rabbi Yochanan, his brother-in-law, holds that ma'os are kona min Torah. You give the person money. The way that we usually effectively make a kinyan, you give the person money. The Gemara in Bechoros on Daf Yud Gimel, this is the Gemara in Bechoros, the second parak, tells us that's from a Jew to a Jew. But when you're making a kinyan from a Jew to a guy, a Jew to a non-Jew, so the opposite methods work. According to Reish Lakish, what would work is ma'os, as opposed to Mashiach, what would work is ma'os, giving over money, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, what would work is Mashiach. So according to Reish Lakish, that's easy. How you would sell chametz to a guy. You just give him money. The way that we normally make kinyanim, just regular buying and selling. According to Rabbi Yochanan, so what do? You just pick up every piece of chametz? And no, what they usually do is they make a symbolic kinyan on Erev Pesach. What you do is you sell your chametz to a guy. Shuls will gather together. I know that many shuls do this, and they'll have one non-Jew who's been selling with them for many years, buying from them for many years. That's the way that it works, and that's mechiras chametz. Next, bedikas chametz. The Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Beis Amud Aleph tells us, or la arba asar botkin as chametz or haner, that the bedikas chametz, you check for chametz on Erev Pesach. What's the reason for this? So let's cut to the chase. This is a machlokes between Rashi and Tosfos in Pesachim on Daf Beis Amud Aleph. Rashi tells us the reason why we check for chametz, the reason why we do bedikas chametz is we're afraid you're going to violate. If you don't do bedikas chametz, we're afraid you're going to violate Val Yirah, Val Yimatzeh. He's worried that the person is worried that bittul chametz won't work. That being mevatel chametz, canceling and nullifying the chametz that you have, will not work. Because Shema lo yavatel b'leiv shalem. Maybe you won't want to totally mevatel your chametz, and maybe you won't nullify your chametz with a complete heart. That's Rashi. Tosfos disagree, and the Balei HaTosfos in Pesachim also, Beis Amud Aleph, tell us that midrabanan bedikas chametz was instituted because Shema Yavo Liachlo. It's a more practical reason that maybe we're worried that you're going to come to eat the chametz. It's a siyag, it's a fence, a rabbinic fence to ensure that you don't come to eat it. We know that within Bedikas Chametz, we know that the Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Zayin tells us Habodek Tzarech Sheyivarech. One who checks for chametz needs to make a bracha. And the question is, why would I have thought otherwise? The reason you would have thought otherwise, the answer to this is that maybe the whole institution of bedikas chametz is the Torah's minias ha'isr, minias with an ayin, that it's all done as a preventative measure. So if it's done as a preventative measure, it's not a regular birchas hamitzvah. It's not a regular birchas hamitzvah. And we know, we've said 100 times throughout this entire year in 40 topics here, that the Gemara in Pesachim also on Zion Amud Beis tells us that kol mitzvos mevarach alein over las yasam. If this is not a birchas hamitzvah, you don't need to make a bracha before. Kamash malan, you make a bracha before because it's a regular birchas hamitzvah. It's not the Torah's minias ha'isr. That was the havamina. The kamash malan, the maskana is that it's really a regular mitzvah. And if it's a regular mitzvah, you make a bracha like all other mitzvahs. If somebody, the Gemara speaks about next, the Gemara speaks about Hayotzi B'Shayara. The Gemara in the first parak of Pesachim tells us that somebody who goes on a trip, so when does he do B'dikas Chametz? it depends. If you leave your house within 30 days of Pesach, you're mechuyav, you have a chiyuv to do b'dikas chametz no matter what. No matter what means that you do b'dikas chametz and you check for chametz. You only make a bracha, the Gemara says, or la arba asar. Or la arba asar, the night before Erev Pesach, that's the only time that you would make a bracha on b'dikas chametz. And from here we see that within 30 days, b'dikas chametz is a mitzvah. Before 30 days, if you do b'dikas chametz before a month before, it's only b'toras minias ha'isr. It's only as a preventative measure. You're going away for a while, and you're doing it sometime at the beginning of Adar, in the middle of Adar, and you're going away on a trip for a longer time than just 2 or 3 weeks. You do b'dikas chametz, but that's just getting to the nature of the din. Okay. That's in terms of b'dikas chametz. So again, there are 2 dinim, whether it's b'toras mitzvah or b'toras menias ha'isr. We next go to hechsher kelim lePesach, kashering kelim for Pesach. There are 2 parshios in Chamisha Chumshei Torah. As we always do halacha in the Korah, we'll start with the psukim in Chumash. There are 2 parshios, 2 sections, and 2 independent parshios that deal with kashering kelim. The first is the upcoming Parshas Tzav. Parshas Tzav, in a couple of weeks, actually in a regular year, it's Shabbos HaGadol. Parshas Tzav speaks about hetera bala. You're talking about kashering kelim, but what you're dealing with is kelim that have heter, dvarim hamutarim in them. It's just that you need to, any meat left over from a karban is nosar, so it's leftover meat, you're not allowed to have that. So that's in the area of kachim, we speak about washing kelim because we don't want to have the isser of nosar. As opposed to that, we have the second parsha in Chumash, where you have Isura Bala, and that is Parshas Matos. In Parshas Matos, we're told that when the Jews came back from their war with Midjan, Milchemes Midjan, they had to kasher their kelim. That was Isura Bala. Those were from non-Jews, and it's from that the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, coming attractions for Kaitzman, we're definitely going to do this wherever we do it, but the Gemara in Avodah Zarah on Daf Ayin Vav, Avodah Zarah has 76 blot. This is the last daf of Avodah Zarah. Ayin Vav Mid Aleph, Ayin Hey Amid Beis, the Mishnah there in the Gemara, and Ayin Vav Mid Aleph tells us that when you buy a cleef non-Jew, so it needs tfilas kelim, and if there was isura in there, if there was non-kosher food in there, or food that you might deem as treif, so you have to kasher the kelim. The question is, now that you have hetera bala and you have isura bala, what is chametz considered? This is the $64,000, 40,000 pound question. What is chametz considered? So this is a machlokas rishonim. Logically, you would say that chametz is hetera bala. It's not treif. It's mutter all year round. It's just usher for the week of Pesach. The Ramban disagrees, and the Ramban says that chametz is considered to be isura bala because we know for that 1 week of Pesach, it's absolutely usher. It's what's called shmo alav. Shmo alav. It's called chametz. It has its name, its label of being chametz. Everybody knows that it's chametz. So that's just how to understand just the background in terms of kashering kelim. Let's go through a few kelim that we need to kasher. In oven. So how do you kasher an oven? So l'chora, it should require libun. Libun is, because we know the pasuk in Parshas Matos tells us that kol davar asher yabo ba'esh taviru ba'esh v'taher. So libun is that it has to be torched. You have to ignite that vessel or that kli with fire and get it to just a very hot temperature, and then it's all good. So that would be, maybe it would require libun because there was fire in the oven, right? There was fire whenever you're cooking in an oven. Since there were no blios in the walls, there was no absorption of anything in the walls of the oven, a lot of people do hagala, which is hot water rinsing, or what we call libun kal, which is a little bit of a lukewarmer libun than regular libun. That's in terms of an oven. What about stovetops? So stovetops, really the question is, do you have to kasher them all together? Right? Because the klal is, and we'll say this slowly so that people can get it down, ein kli bolea mikli ella al yedei rotev. And there was no liquid here. There was no rotev. There was no juice. There was definitely no isser juice. There was no usser juice there. What? Sure. Ein kli bolea mikli ella al yedei rotev. That unless there's liquid to transfer from one piece of meat to the other, it's not going to be usher. So the Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Pesach, bottom line, says that it's still kosher, notwithstanding the klal of ein kli bolea mikli, but the Shulchan Aruch is still machmir, that even if you won't put food on the stove, when it comes to chametz, you have to kasher your stovetops no matter what. So how do you kasher your stovetop? So many people assume that you have to do libun, but the way to do it is you put a pot on top of the fire so it gets as hot as it was before, and you try to do your best, and the top should be kashered with a self-cleaning oven. We'll hold off on that for a second. Let's do sinks for a minute. How do you kasher sinks? Sinks can be done al yidei hagala. Hagala is with an iron, by the way. Sinks can be kashered al yidei hagala, that you pour mayim roshchin, boiling hot water, on the sinks. And the sink, it's a whole question of whether it's considered to be a kli rishon or a kli sheni. The 40 Topics guys, and for the 40 Topics guys who are listening in or watching in, you can check your notes from when we did all of Bishul Dorais and Bishul Drabanan in 45 minutes. So that was a couple of months ago. Crazy. But for sinks, you probably need Iroi Kli Rishon. You pour from something, the water's mid-transit, you pour it onto a Kli Rishon, the Kli Rishon here being the sink, which means that you heat up a pot, you take it off the fire, and you pour it all around the sink, like we were explaining before. That's boiling hot water all around the sink. That's the way to do it. Okay. Next, the Zmanim for the Leil HaSeder. Tosos and Psachim at the beginning of Arvei Psachim, Tosos and Psachim Daf Tzadites Amud Beis tells us in Dibur Maschil Ad that Lo Yochal Adam Ad Shetechshach. A person on Seder night cannot eat until it's dark, until Teisach Ochavim. And the question is, why does the Mishnah in Arvei Psachim Samach L'Mincha, Lo Yochal Adam Ad Shetechshach? And the question is why? Why does the Mishnah feel the need to use the term to tell me Ad Shetechshach? So Tosfos in Arvei Psachim, it's a well-known Tosfos, relatively well-known Tosfos, tell us because on Shabbos and Yom Tov, mainly Shabbos, the Gemara in Brachos in the 4th Perek on Daf Chav Zayin tells us, Chavav Mebez and Chav Zayin Medala tells us that you can bring in Shabbos early. This was another one of our 40 topics earlier in the year when we did Hilchos Shabbos, one of our last ones within our Shabbos series. We say that you can bring in Shabbos early. We're all familiar. Whether you're a regular in this year or listening in for the first time, you know that there's something called making early Shabbos. So if there's making early Shabbos, we know that for Shabbos we can bring in Shabbos early. Kamash Malan says the pasuk in Parshas Bo, Shmos Perek Yud Beis, Ba'erev Tochlu Matzos. You have to wait until Tzeis HaKochavim. You cannot eat anything until you can sing the song Kadesh Orchatz, but you can't eat anything until Tzeis HaKochavim. That's in terms of the earliest time. And now the question is, what's the Sof Zman Seder? We know that things have to be done by Chatzos. That depends upon the Sof Zman Achilas Korban Pesach. The whole connection is to the Zman Achilas Korban Pesach. In fact, even this year, when we don't yet have the Korban Pesach, we still abide by those rules. This is a Machlokas Rishonim as to when is the Iker Achilas Matzah. Achilas Matzah is actually our next subtopic, so we're whetting our appetite, no pun intended. But when is the Achilas Zman Korban Pesach? So this is a Machlokas Rishonim between the Rosh and the Rashbam in Psachim. The Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, tells us that it's a mitzvah deoraisa. The mitzvah deoraisa of matzah is the first kizayis. And korech and afikomen are just zecher lemigdash. But you still need to eat afikomen before chatzos halayla. That's the rush. The Rashbam, that's the rush. The first main kizayis is the mitzvah doraisa. The mitzvah doraisa is on the first kizayis of motzi matzah. The Rashbam disagrees, and the Rashbam holds exactly the opposite. The ikar achilas matzah is at the end of the meal. You should eat it before chatzos. You must eat it before chatzos. The first kizayis is just because you have to wash. It's just the hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Comes the Avnei Nezer and has his whole t'nai, his whole condition. This is known as the Avnei Nezer's, the Sakachava Rebbe's t'nai. The Avnei Nezer was also the author of the Eglei Tal. We learn something new every night. So the Avnei Nezer asked the question of what if you're stuck and you know your magid is going on so long and it's spilling into motzi matzah and korech, etc., and you're not going to make. You might not even make achilas matzah of motzi matzah before chatzos. You're not going to make afikomen before chatzos. What do? So the Avnei Nezer has his t'nai where you say before chatzos, you say give a t'nai, right? You say on condition. If Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is right, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah held that you need to the sos man achilas korban Pesach is before chatzos, based on the gzeras hakasav of the achulas habasar b'layla hazeh. So that's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So if Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is right, this is afikomen. But if Rabbi Akiva is right, Rabbi Akiva, of course, held that it may be eaten until the morning because of chipazon. He learned from the pasuk in Chumash of chipazon ad shas chipazon until the time of haste. So if Rabbi Akiva is right, this is not afikomen, and you must have another kizayis afterwards. So that's known as the Avnei Nezer's t'nai. Must you finish Hallel by chatzos? So Tosos in Maseches Megillah holds that no, you do not need to have Hallel by chatzos. You do not need to sing Hallel by chatzos because Hallel is only drabanan, and the other dinim, certainly matzah. Bar is also drabanan b'zman hazeh, but matzah is the oraisa. And the Ran in Pesachim disagrees. The Ran says you have to finish Hallel by chatzos. The Ran's reason is that the Kriyas Hallel, the Shiras Hallel at the Seder night is a completely different Hallel. We know that by its very nature, we spoke about this back to 40 Topics Chanukah, check your notes. Hallel at the Seder night is a Hallel b'shas haneis mamish. It's a Hallel, it's like we're experiencing Kriyas Yamsuf again. It's like Yitzias Mitzrayim's Hallel again. Bizman Cheiruseinu. So that's what the Ran says. The Ran in Pesachim says that you have to finish Hallel by chatzos because the whole recitation of Hallel, B'leil HaSeder, is a kiyum of Hallel b'shas haneis mamish. Next, achilas matzah. The pasuk in Parshas Bo tells us, "Ushmartem es hamatzos." We learn from these three words in Parshas Bo, "Ushmartem es hamatzos," that we need shmura matzah. We prefer matzah shmura. What kind of a halacha is this? So Rashi in Pesachim on Daf Mem Amud Aleph. Rashi Pesachim Mem Amud Aleph tells us this is based on the Shas Klal of Lishma. You need shimur, you need to watch over this. This is the din of doing something Lishma. And the Rambam in Hilchos Chometz U'Matzah took us long enough to quote our favorite Rishon Yosef, right? So the Rambam in Hilchos Chometz U'Matzah tells us in Perek Hey Halacha Tes in Hilchos Chometz U'Matzah 5:9 Hey Tes tells us Ushmartem es hamatzos is just a shimur michimos. You're guarding it from becoming chametz. The nafkamina between Rashi and the Rambam is whether shmura matzah is required for all of the 7 days of Pesach or just for the Seder. According to Rashi, you only need shmura matzah for the Seder. Or according to the Rambam, you need shmura matzah for the entire week of Pesach. The next question in terms of matzah is when does the process of shimur begin? We know we have the din of shmura matzah, great. Now the next question is, when does the process of Shimur begin? So the Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Mem Amud Aleph quotes a machlokas. Either at the time of Shimur Mishas Lisha, from the time of kneading with a K, kneading the dough, or do you even need Shimur Mishas Ktsira, even earlier? That's the Rambam. The Rambam holds that you need Shimur Mishas Ktsira, and in fact, Halacha L'Maisa, we paskin like the Rambam. We try as hard as we can to have our Shmura Matzah Mishas Ktsira Ve'elach, which is an earlier point. Good. The one type of matzah that's going to be a problem is matzah mevusheles. If matzah, maybe, is, right, the one maybe problem, the one speed bump when it comes to matzah is, because we know the Gemara in Brachos, in Paraketz Mevarchin, tells us that ba'inan tam matzah, if it's cooked matzah, that's all discussion about gebrachs. If you eat gebrachs, great. But just know that it's a sugya in Ketz Mevarchin that maybe it takes away a little bit from the tam matzah. Fine. That's the discussion there. Good. Next, that's in terms of matzah. Next is maror, achilas maror. The Gemara talks about, the Gemara in Brachos on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis has a discussion about shlakos. Shlakos shin lamed kuf vav taf or saf. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis at the bottom of the Yomid, if I'm not mistaken, has a discussion about shlakos, which is cooked vegetables, and how to view a shinoi in the chefza. You take a vegetable and you cook it up. Does the bracha change? That's why it's in Ketz Mevarchin. So you transfer this over to maror. You also have the issue of ba'inan tam maror v'leka. There's a din in the Gemara in Chulin in the 7th parak. The Gemara in Chulin in the 7th parak, Parakid Anashe, is talking about kavush kemavushal, soaking something in vinegar in particular, but soaking something is like cooking it. And it's just a question as to, what if you soak maror? Do you sap and zap the taste away from the maror at all? So this is just a general question of what's the shear for kavush, meaning if you leave maror in water or in vinegar for too long, so what's the shear for kavush? So it can range from anywhere from, if maror is in water and it saps away the taste of maror, for, according to the Ravya, as well as the Sefer Yereim, Rav Eliezer Mimitz, he holds that maror, in order to not be considered maror anymore, it has to be soaked for 3 days. 72 hours is the shear. And according to the Ritzbah, is another one of the Rishonim, he holds that it's 24 hours. Again, just to get these shitos down, that's just a discussion there. Should just know that both matzah and maror, there's a discussion of matzah mevusheles, maror mevushal, just a discussion there in terms of maror. We should just be aware that you need something that's sharp. That is why there are many who hold, the Yerushalmi in particular leads the way, where he says that people think that romaine lettuce that a lot of people use, virtually everybody uses it. Why is that good? And according to Yerushalmi, that's actually the lechatchila shebelechatchila type of maror at the Seder. Why is that true? That's because, Yerushalmi says, because when they used to plant, and it's true now also, if you leave it in the ground long enough, it's going to be sharp like maror. In fact, it's the original plant, it's the original maror, which is why there are those who hold that the ground up white grain is not as good as the romaine lettuce. I would say, because it's not the original maror, I would say like this, halacha l'maisa, you should definitely have the romaine lettuce, and you should add a little bit for, let's do it because we haven't done it yet, for everybody watching live, in order to have real maror, okay, you need to have a combination of the romaine lettuce and a little bit of the Vayimaru es Chayehem b'avodah kasha. Next, Kadesh. Kadesh is different from Kiddush on a Friday night. How so? There are at least 3, maybe 4 differences. Get them down. The first is that unlike Shabbos and Yontif, Shomea Ka'ona works. Where Shomea Ka'ona, that's the Gemara in Sukkah Yehuda, Daf Lamed Ches, where the Gemara tells us that Shomea Ka'ona works. If I listen to you do something, Kriyas HaMegillah, and there are some exceptions, but Kriyas HaMegillah and Tekiyah Shofar is an example as well. So that's true by Kiddush. And Kiddush is an example. Kadesh comes the Gemara in Eruvin on Daf Mem, which we've quoted at least twice in 40 topics throughout the year in different contexts. But Hamikadesh Tzarech Sheyitom, the person making the Kiddush has to taste the wine, right? Or Hamivarech, right? Meaning it could just be the head of the household. The Seder night, everybody needs to have a little bit. That's the first difference. Shomea Ka'ona will not work. You can't just hear from the head of the household. The second difference is in the shear of yayin, the amount of yayin. We know that in a regular Kiddush on Shabbos, the Mevarech needs to drink a milo lugmav, a cheekful, which usually comes out to a rov revius, most of a revius, of a shear revius. The Seder night, the Ramban is of the opinion, we follow this Ramban, that you have to have rov of each of the Dalit Kosos. That's the Ramban. That's difference number 2. Difference number 3, we spoke about this in a different context. The Gemara in Bava Basra on Daf Tzadi Zayin tells us that on a regular Shabbos and Yom Tov, Sochei Adam Eshkol Shal Anavim, the Omer Alav Kiddush Hayom. You can have grape juice. Grape juice is fine. The Seder night, you may be able to have grape juice, but I say maybe, Eitan, because that's a machlokes achronim. The Seder night is what is considered chayros. You need a wine or a grape juice, depends who's who here, machlokes between Rav Moshe Feinstein and the Rav, between Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rav Soloveitchik, whether, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, it needs to be intoxicating. You absolutely need. There's an objective chayros called wine, and according to the Rav Soloveitchik held that grape juice is acceptable for the Dalit Kosos. Those people who drink grape juice for at least Kadesh, and for the other Kosos as well, but we're mainly talking about Kadesh, the first of the Dalit Kosos, they hold like the Rav, like Rav Soloveitchik. The next difference, the fourth difference, is that as opposed to, is this difference number 3 or difference number 4? Difference number 4, great. Shabbos and Yontif, we pointed out before, which is a major halachic misconception when we did Hilchos Shabbos and we did the mitzvah sayers of Shabbos, that people need to sit when you are drinking the wine or grape juice on a regular Shabbos. You can say Kiddush standing or half standing, half sitting, but when you drink the grape juice or wine, you have to be seated. At the Seder table, at the Seder night, you definitely have to be seated, but what else do you have to do? Comes the Gemara in Pesachim. We need to know where things are in Shas Gideon. Comes the Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Kuf Ches Amud Aleph and tells us that you need Haseba Yonadav. You need Haseba, you need to lean. This is something that we mentioned in another shir about, but I thought because Haseba is a din drabanan, you will not find Haseba in the Torah. Haseba, as we know, is a din drabanan. So why do I need to lean by all Dalit Kosos? Comes the Ran in Pesachim and tells us that you have to lean by all Dalit Kosos because for 2 reasons. One reason is that it's a very easy Safek Drabanan L'Kula. So we don't say Safek Drabanan L'Kula when something's very easy to do. So we tell you, just lean. Lean to your left for health reasons, but lean, it's just a very easy addition to the Dalit Kosos. And the second reason is, so when something's so easy, we don't say something Drabanan L'Kula, we make you do it, we have you do it. And the second reason is something a little more lundish, that the Gemara Pesachim Daf Kuf Ches presents the Dalit Kosos and says that, yeah, each one is the Rabbanan. We would say something Drabanan L'Kula, we'd be left with nothing. We don't say Safek Drabanan L'Kula. This might sound familiar from Hutzal, Megillah Daf Hey, Sam, Shkoyach. But really from when we did 40 topics for him, we don't say Safek Drabanan L'Kula, B'makom Tarti V'Satre. The Makom Tarta the Sasre in a self-contradictory psak. If you took each one, which means over here, if you took each one of the Daled Kosos in Psachim Kufches, you would end up with no Haseba. We don't do that. When it's going to knock it out completely, we don't say something Drabbana L'Kula. So we make you do that. Next, the central mitzvah of the Seder night, Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. Here we go with another one of those differences. There are a few differences between Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim that we have in the Seder night and Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim that we have all year round. Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim is a special mitzvah d'oraisa. How does it differ from our twice daily Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim? Especially if we paskin like Benzoma at the very end of the first parak of Brachos that we're maskirin Yitzias Mitzrayim by Yom Uvalayla. So Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, Rav Chaim Brisker, in his Chidushim al Hashas, comes Rav Chaim and tells us, for Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim, all you need is a Haskara Bi'alma. Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim means just mentioning, like we had by Purim. The Megillah tells us in Perek Tes, Pasuk Chavches, the Hayamim Ha'ila Nizkarim B'Na'asim, Lahaskir means to mention. So too over here, normally throughout the year you need Lahaskir, you just need to mention. But for Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, Shmuel, Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, you have to follow the method of Derech She'ela U'Tshuva. Even for a person who never, he's having the Seder by himself, he needs to ask those questions. Shebechol Halelos Anu Ochli. You have to ask yourself those questions. That's the first difference between Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim and Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim at the Seder night. The next difference is that all year round we have Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim, Parsha Shlach, third Parsha of Shema. All you need to do is Ani Hashem Elokechem Asher Hotzei Eschem Me'eretz Mitzrayim. But for Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, you have to address the specific mitzvos halayla. Not only derech shelo tshuva, this is slightly different, Akiva. You have to address the mitzvos halayla. Rabbi Gamliel Hayomer, Kol Shlo Omu Shlosh Dvar Pesach, Lo Yatzei Dei Chavaso, De Eluhein Pesach Matzah Umaror. And the next difference is that the other difference is that Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim, again, these are all very similar differences, but Zechiras Yitzias Mitzrayim, you just need to mention, as we said before, so that we had before, but Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim rather, the Chol Hamarbe Hareza Meshubach. The more you speak, the more you have a magid, the more you speak about things, the more you are praised, the more praiseworthy you are. We have the din of Zeichel Amigdash Kehillel. That's next. We know that the pasuk tells us we have two parshios of Pesach, and we're going to read them on 2 different days of the 7 days of Pesach. One is, as we've quoted a number of times in this year, Parshas Bo. That we're going to read. We're going to read Mishchu. That's Chamishi of Parshas Bo on the first day Pesach, and then on the 4th day Chol HaMoed, or the last day of Chol HaMoed, we'll read, or the 5th day of Chol HaMoed here in Eretz Yisrael, we will read Parshas B'Ha'aloscha, the parsha within a parsha of Pesach Sheni. Why do I tell you that? Because for the Zeichel Amigdash Kehillel, for Korech, Al Matzos Umrorim Yochluhu, there's a machlokes between Hillel and the Chachamim. Hillel holds, in Arvei Pesachim, Hillel holds that you eat it all together as one. You eat it as a Korech sandwich. The Chachamim hold that you cannot be Yotze eating it together because what we call mitzvos mevatlos zo as zo. Or mitzvos mevatlos zu as zu. One mitzvah cancels out another mitzvah. So that's the whole discussion there. There is a major discussion about whether you make a bracha on Korech, just to know the issues. Some Rishonim hold you do not make a bracha on a Zeichel Amigdash, because it's a Zeichel Amigdash. This is the klal of Zeichel Amigdash throughout Shas. And Yochanan ben Zakkai, we learn Rosh Hashanah and Elul Zman, the afternoon Seder, right? So the 4th parak of Rosh Hashanah has these Gemaras. The end of the 3rd parak of Sukkah has these Gemaras. So too over here, we say that you don't make a bracha on a Zeichel Amigdash, and other Rishonim say you don't make a bracha on Korech not because you don't make a bracha on a Zeichel Amigdash. You don't make a bracha on Korech because you already said one on Matzah and Maror. You already said one on Matzah and Maror. The Shulchan Aruch points out another reason that when you have a mitzvah, it just points out another thing rather. The Shulchan Aruch in Hilchos Pesach tells us that when you have a mitzvah that takes a while, what's called a mitzvah hanimsheches, a mitzvah that drags on for a while, drags on makes it sound like we don't want to do the mitzvah. We're very happy about doing the mitzvah, but it goes on for a while. A mitzvah of magid that can take a couple of hours. You have to make sure not to be mafsik. From the beginning of, you're not allowed to have a hefsek. You're not allowed to have an interruption from the beginning of the mitzvah until the end. We have this, by the way, in everyday davening. Between Baruch Sha'amar and the end of Sukkot Zimra, between Yishtabach and the end of, at least till after Shemon Esrei, if not the end of davening. But we have this idea. So when you have a mitzvah that takes a while, we know you're not supposed to speak. So when do you say the Zeichel HaMikdash Kehillah? So my own personal nihug, my own personal custom is to say it after you have the korech sandwich. But there are those who say you say it before because just to know what the issue is. Because it's me'inyan le'inyan ba'oso inyan. You're not talking about sports, you're not talking about business. You're talking about the Seder night. Zeichel HaMikdash Kehillah, Kenos HaHillah, B'zman Shebeis HaMikdash HaRakayim, HaYakorech Matzah Mar Ba'ochlam B'yachad. And then we quote the parsha within a parsha of Pesach Sheni in Parshas Ba'aloscha, B'midbar Parak Tes. But it's me'inyan le'inyan, so that's okay. And finally, for tonight, our subtopic of Chametz She'avar Alav HaPesach. The Gemara in Pesachim on Daf Vav Amud Beis tells us that little crumbs, pirurim, are not a problem. That's black on white in the Gemara. Even big pieces would be okay. Pesachim Vav Amud Beis are not a problem. As long as you did, and this is so beautiful because it brings the shiur full circle. We always aim for clarity. It brings the shiur full circle. As long as you did a bedikas chametz and a bittul chametz, as long as you did bedika and you did bittul, as long as you checked properly and did your best, even if you find chametz, we say the klal and shas ones rachmana patre, and you're only over the isser of owning chametz with chametz that you know about. If one does find chametz on or after Pesach, the Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim, Siman Taf Mem Vav, tells us you should destroy it immediately. Flush it down the toilet, destroy it immediately. Also, if you find chametz on Yontif, just be aware, it's muktzah. We spoke about 40 topics muktzah a couple of months ago in our Hilchos Shabbos series within a series, and you should be and this chametz should be covered to avoid it from being eaten by accident. The Gemara in Pesachim and Daf Lamed, we close with this and one more makar from the Shulchan Aruch. The Gemara in Pesachim and Daf Lamed tells us that the isser of chametz she'avar alav Pesach is an isser hana midrabanan. It's an isser of getting benefit midrabanan, and is an onesh to people who owned it during Pesach. The Shulchan Aruch in Siman Taf Mem Ches says this isser even applies to a Baal Chametz who is a shogeg, somebody who owns Chametz by accident, or even if you did Bittul Chametz. Therefore, if one finds Chametz she'avar alav Pesach, you have to throw it out immediately. Destroy it immediately, throw it out immediately. Looking forward to seeing everybody in 40 topics next week, next Wednesday night, 10:30 p.m. Israel time. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and stay safe.
That's right. That's okay.